Hello and welcome to FolioWeb. In this fourth video in the Quick Start series, we're going to be talking about the two different types of files that you ordinarily would include in your personnel action in FolioWeb. The first type of file that you will upload to your portfolio in FolioWeb are officially required files. And they vary in number depending on the personnel action that you are standing for, but almost always your vita is required. Very often a statement of purpose, goals, self-reflection, that kind of thing is required. We often call that a contextual or candidate statement. Depending on personnel action, you may need to upload summaries of your teaching performance. There are a certain number of officially required files that candidates have to upload, and then after you're done uploading things, typically your department will have some things to add to your file, like a letter of appointment and those kinds of materials. So every file is comprised of some number of officially required documents. And those are uploaded by both the candidate and by the administrative unit. The second kind of file are what are called supplemental materials. And kind of as the name implies, supplemental materials can be virtually anything. The idea here is to upload materials that you think your colleagues would need to see to evaluate your file in the best light possible. And I deliberately use the word need here as opposed to just want. Generally, reviewers are very busy, especially in the fall when they're reviewing lots and lots of files. It's not unusual in some units for reviewers to be looking at 60 files. So you don't want to include a lot of extraneous fluff in your file. So materials that you really believe are essential for your colleagues to be able to understand the work that you do and see it in its context is what you want to include. Now that's a kind of a broad brush statement. The best and authoritative source of what should be included in your file is your unit administrator, your department chair, school director, campus dean, or independent college dean. It's a very good idea to check with that individual if you have any questions about whether it's a good idea to include something in your file or not. But keep in mind that you're including stuff in your file for a specific audience, and that audience is your colleagues who need to review your materials. But do them a favor and don't include a lot of stuff that's kind of unnecessary. So let's just consider a simple example and then we'll move on. Let's say, for example, that you have a letter that a student has written you after the semester's over talking about how your instruction was very moving, inspiring, and changed what they thought about the discipline and really was instrumental in helping them with their career aspirations, their life goals, that kind of thing. Would you include that in your file? Well, of course. How about a Christmas card from a student who said, thanks for the great course, maybe not so much. And then there could be all kinds of things in between there. So the idea would be, is the letter something that really talks about your scholarship of teaching, scholarship in research and discovery, talks about your service to your profession, to the world, in ways that are very directly applicable to your candidacy. So again, if you have any doubts, if you think it's questionable whether you should include it or not, please check with your unit administrator. Another good source of advice are senior faculty in your unit. Ask somebody who's likely to be a reviewer whether they think that exhibit that you'll be including is something that's useful. So where do you get these supplemental materials? Well, as we sort of implied, you might have surveys from students, you might have letters, you might have articles, publications, conference proceedings, those kinds of examples of scholarly productivity. You might have videos or audio recordings of performances, including teaching performances or artistic performances. You might have still images or scans of materials that you'd like to include. FolioWeb can handle any kind of supplemental material that you want to include, but again, keep in mind that your reviewers may not have the expertise to look at very exotic material, so you want to probably keep it fairly simple and keep your materials as standard kinds of files like MP3s for audio, and MP4 is a good format for video, JPEG for photographs. If you are, for example, an architect and you have 3D renderings of stuff, again, it's probably a better idea, instead of having exotic AutoCAD type files that not everybody can review, to render those into some format that's going to be more ubiquitous and available to your colleagues. So one source is documents that you have on your computer. You may have syllabi saved as Word files. You may have images saved as JPEGs. You may have a bunch of stuff of your scholarships that are already in your possession as digital copies of stuff, files that are on your computer. That's easy. Those are very easy to work with. Again, save those as PDF, save those as JPEG, save those as commonly and easily accessible file formats. If you have printouts, say reprints of articles or conference proceedings or brochures, things that or letters that were sent to you, chances are you don't have those saved as computer files, and you'll need to scan those. And typically departments have high-speed document scanners to make that convenient for you to do. And again, your administrative assistant or your department staff is likely to be a good source of information on where that stuff is available and how to use it. There is a brief tutorial in FolioWeb on how to use departmental BizHubs. They're very common around campus. These are just high-speed document scanners, copiers, printers, multifunction devices that most departments have. They're easily available to most faculty. The third type of material that you might have are links to external websites. As we move more and more into the information age, the economics of publishing are changing so that many journals are becoming e-journals or having versions that are also online that still have the same sorts of rejection or acceptance rates, but now have sort of decided to forego killing trees and the expense of publishing and have the same refereed quality, but they're now available online. However, those journals are very often subscription-based. They still cost money to access. And as part of the Ohio Link system, Kent Link, the Kent State Library, subscribes to a number of databases of publications that are in journals that are available online. However, those have to be accessed through Kent's Virtual Private Network, VPN, to make sure that you are authorized and reviewers are authorized to see those materials. That's not a problem. We've found that almost everybody that needs to knows how to use the VPN. There's lots of abundant information about how to do it if they don't. And the databases that are available through Kent Link provide what's called a persistent hyperlink. That is, it's not going to change. You can simply copy and paste that link into your Vita, and reviewers will be able to access that. So the only risk here is if you're linking to kind of a fly-by-night website that might change its URL or go out of business and that kind of stuff. And if you're very worried about that, you might consider downloading a copy, scanning it, kind of being old-fashioned about it, or downloading it, saving it as a PDF, and re-uploading it. But more and more, of course, that's becoming more moot as we get more sophisticated in our electronic world. So don't hesitate to use links to third-party websites, especially through things like EBSCOhost and the Kent State Library. You're going to find that that is a more and more accessible and convenient way of doing business. Those journals that we used to have reprints in our files now are just hyperlinks to stuff. Very convenient, very easy to use. So you're likely to have some documents of your own, syllabi, examples of course materials, that kind of thing, reprints that you have, or galley proofs. Don't hesitate to save those as PDFs and upload those. Scan the materials that you have to and link to third-party websites, either through Kent Link with a persistent hyperlink or directly to the website if you know what that is, and it can be easily accessed. So now we kind of have a sense that we have things like our Vita and a statement in our file, and then we have all this other stuff. The Vita and the statement and the other required documents are highly structured and use one type of upload system that we'll see in our next couple of videos. But supplemental materials are a little bit more open-ended, quite a bit more open-ended in fact, because there's no a priori structure that's imposed on that stuff. It can be whatever you want. The university and FolioWeb have no idea that you wanted to upload a video of your teaching students on a field trip. So it can be whatever you want it to be, but now you have to get those materials linked to your Vita or your contextual statement, or they won't be accessible to anybody. So what you're going to do is create a hyperlink in your Vita to the materials that you upload. And that may sound like a lot, but it's actually a very simple process, and we're going to get to that in a subsequent video. So the way that your supplemental materials get to talk to the officially required documents is through hyperlinks. So the idea, of course, would be that your Vita would function something like a table of contents, and you scroll down through the Vita and you'd find a hyperlink to an article. You click on that and the article would open up. Scroll down a little further and you might find a syllabus. Click on that, it'll open up. Scroll down a little further, there might be a letter from a student singing your praises. You click on that and open it. Scroll down a little further, there might be a video or an audio of a performance that you've put on. So your Vita or your contextual statement become the gateways to your supplemental materials through hyperlinking. And again, we're going to cover that in a subsequent video. So two types of files that we need to worry about here: officially required files that are frankly probably a little easier to work with, and then whatever you want to do with your supplemental materials that you think present your candidacy in the best light possible. And you're going to be consulting with your department chair, school director, campus dean, or independent college dean to get some advice on what kind of supplemental materials are best suited to the culture of your unit.